Standard techniques. Before we get to the dark stuff, here's what most people don't realize. The CIA's most effective interrogations don't start with pain or fear. They start with a conversation. Standard rapport-based interrogation is exactly what it sounds like. Direct questioning. Building trust over time. Strategic silence. Just sitting there, waiting, letting the subject fill the void because humans hate dead air. And then there's the incentives. Food, comfort, slightly better conditions. You'd be surprised what a decent meal and a conversation can accomplish when someone's been sitting alone in a cell for weeks. It sounds almost too simple. But professional interrogators will tell you this approach works better and more reliably than anything else on this list. The problem is it's slow. And after September 11th, slow wasn't an option anyone in Washington wanted to hear about. Psychological pressure. When patience runs out, the CIA reaches for the mind. Psychological pressure techniques don't leave marks. That's the point. Sleep deprivation keeps detainees awake for extended periods, in some documented cases up to 180 hours. Your brain after 6 or 7 days without sleep is essentially malfunctioning. Decision-making collapses. Reality blurs. You'll say almost anything. Then there's isolation. Cut someone off from all human contact and watch what happens to their mental state. Pair that with sensory deprivation, hoods, blackout goggles, earmuffs, and you've removed every anchor a person has to reality. No light, no sound, no sense of time. Alternatively, flip it completely and hit them with sensory overload. Loud music. Think Metallica or children's TV theme songs blasted at deafening volumes for hours on end. Blinding lights. Both approaches attack the same thing, the ability to think clearly and resist. But the psychological toolkit goes further. Humiliation, forced nudity, degrading treatment, strips away identity and dignity. Threats against the detainee or their family members create fear that doesn't need to be acted on to be effective. False flag operations mean the interrogator pretends to be from a different agency or country entirely. And deception is standard. Fabricated evidence, fake confessions from supposed accomplices, manufactured proof of guilt presented as fact. The CIA also documented something called the Alice in Wonderland technique, deliberately irrational, unpredictable behavior designed to disorient and destabilize. And if interrogators knew a subject had a specific phobia, spiders, confined spaces, anything, that fear became a tool. Ego attacks worked too. Tear someone down or build them up depending on what makes them break. None of this leaves a bruise. All of it can destroy a person. Physical stress techniques. Now we're entering territory that got Congress involved. After 9/11, the Bush administration's Office of Legal Counsel signed off on a set of techniques officially called enhanced interrogation. The rest of the world has another word for them. Torture. Walling. Slamming a detainee against a specially built flexible wall designed to maximize impact and shock without technically breaking bones. Facial slaps. Stress positions. Forced kneeling, standing, or being held in contorted postures for hours until muscles fail. A variation called short shackling locked detainees in a squat or fetal position for extended periods, placing extreme strain on the knees and quads. Cramped confinement. The CIA used both a large confinement box and a small confinement box, sometimes placing insects inside if interrogators knew the subject had a phobia. The small box was specifically designed so there was no comfortable position, too tight to sit, too small to curl up, engineered to put maximum pressure on muscles over time. Dietary manipulation reduced caloric intake to the bare minimum needed to survive. Nudity was used as a conditioning and humiliation tool. And then there's waterboarding, a simulated drowning technique that triggers the body's most primal survival response. The oxygen deprivation involved can cause brain damage, and the physical struggle against restraints has been documented to break bones. It was used on Abu Zubaydah 83 times, on Khalid Sheikh Mohammed 183 times, on others as well. The 2014 Senate Intelligence Committee report confirmed all of it. The same report documented rectal feeding and rehydration used on detainees, procedures the CIA claimed were medical necessities. The Senate found no evidence to support that justification. These techniques were formally authorized. Lawyers signed off on them. And none of it, according to the Senate report, produced the reliable intelligence the CIA claimed it did. Environmental manipulation. Separate from the official enhanced interrogation list, the CIA used the environment itself as a weapon. Extreme cold, cold cells, cold water dousing, applied for hours or days. Sustained cold water torture could drive body temperature low enough to cause hypothermia. Extreme heat. Prolonged standing on injured limbs. Forced sleep in painful, stress-inducing positions. These weren't improvised cruelties. They were deliberate applications of physical discomfort designed to wear down resistance over time. The logic is straightforward. You don't have to touch someone if the room is doing the work for you. Rendition and proxy interrogation. Here's where it gets geopolitically complicated. Extraordinary rendition is the practice of transferring detainees to third countries. Egypt, Syria, Morocco, and others have served in this role at some point, with documented records of using torture. The CIA doesn't ask questions. The Foreign Intelligence Service applies whatever methods it wants. The detainee comes back either broken or dead, and the CIA maintains plausible deniability. It's outsourcing the dirty work across a border. The U.S. government officially doesn't torture. It just hands someone to a government that does and waits for the results. Post 9/11, this program ran extensively. Some detainees were rendered to countries they had no connection to. Some were held for years. Some were cases of mistaken identity. The system didn't require certainty. It just required a name. Cold War-era techniques. To understand where all of this came from, you have to go back to 1963 and a document called the QBARC Counterintelligence Interrogation Manual. The CIA spent the early Cold War years obsessed with the idea that the Soviets had cracked the code on human manipulation. So they funded their own research, some of the most disturbing government-sponsored science in American history. The QBARC manual described a process called regression, systematically breaking down a person's psychological defenses until they entered a childlike dependent state, completely reliant on the interrogator for any sense of safety or comfort. It described sensory deprivation chambers decades before Guantanamo. It documented hypnosis attempts as an interrogation aid. And then there was MK Ultra, the CIA's secret program testing LSD, sodium pentothal, and other substances on subjects, many of whom had no idea they were being experimented on. The goal was a truth serum, a chemical shortcut to confession. What they got instead was decades of lawsuits, a congressional investigation, and evidence that the agency had been running illegal human experiments on American citizens. Electric shock techniques were documented in CIA training programs exported to foreign intelligence services through manuals like the 1983 Human Resource Exploitation Training Manual, essentially an updated QBARC taught to allied governments across Latin America. The Cold War mind control program never produced the reliable results the CIA wanted, but it laid the psychological and institutional groundwork for everything that came after it. The CIA has spent decades perfecting the science of making people talk. Some of it is surprisingly simple. Some of it is deeply disturbing. All of it is real. Documented in declassified government files, Senate investigations, and internal manuals the agency never wanted you to read. The QBARC manual wasn't declassified until 1997. The torture memos stayed hidden for years. The Senate's interrogation report, all 6,700 pages of it, has still never been fully released to the public. The debate about what any of it was actually worth is still happening right now, as part of a broader discussion that will likely never end.